Okay, one, go. Hi, I'd like to introduce you to Sarah Arrow. She's going to be really special. Sarah, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, fantastic, brilliant. So, let me just put our names up so you know who's who, just in case you forget. um, the reason why I asked Sarah if she wouldn't mind taking a little bit of time, and not forgetting she's busy, right? So she's taken some time out of her day to day to actually share with us what's going on for her, what's happening with her. And one of the reasons why I'm interviewing Sarah is because she's part of the Essex Business Women's Experience, which I'm doing too. But I want you to know that I would uh, interview Sarah regardless of whether she was part of the Essex Business Women's Experience or not, because she's somebody quite special, somebody that you really want to know. And especially because Sarah has a real reputation for over delivering, really kind of, sharing and trying to make a difference and really trying to help people. So, even if you don't come to the Essex Businesswoman's Experience, later on, Sarah will share with you how you can connect with her. And I would really love you to do that regardless of what choices you make about the Essex Businesswoman's Experience. But my first question to Sarah is, I know you're an Essex girl. So tell us why you are going to be at the Essex Businesswomen's Experience again and what this event means to you.
Well, as somebody who's lived in Essex now for half my life, it's the longest place I've ever lived. And it makes sense that we support local businesses. And if we just go purely on the numbers, if you spend with a local business person, £1 out of every 10 that you spend with them is put back into the local economy. So that's all your services locally around you. Now, if you went to a major chain like Superdrugs, Boots, Tesco's, or something like that and bought something from there, £1 out of every 25 goes back into your local economy. So whilst these great big places are brilliant, employ lots of people, it doesn't really do a lot for the local communities. So when you support something like Business Women's Experience in Essex, when you support the Winning Women and the women in those communities, you're putting back directly into your local community at 2.5 times what other big corporations do. And that makes a real difference. It makes a difference to their sons, their daughters, their parents, to everybody around them. To me, it just makes financial sense that we all support ourselves and our local communities by buying from each other, recommending each other's services, and connecting and getting to know with each other. And there's a lot of people out there, and they seem to have this shiny fixation with anything that comes from America. My 2 children are the number one at this. Right? If it's got Hollywood anywhere, it's the best. And the truth of the matter is, quite simply, we've got some incredible, amazing people who are just as good as anybody over in Hollywood right here in Essex. And we've got amazing people like Rosemary, who does the money archetypes. We've got Irene Brankin, who's like an eminent psychologist. And people travel all over the world and pay heaps and heaps of money to talk to Irene. And she's right here in Essex. Yet you'll have people say, oh, if I'm going to get therapy for any kind of anything, I'm going to go to Harley Street. And I'm like, oh, the world's leading consultants in Leigh-on-Sea, and you're going to Harley Street. What's wrong with you? Yeah. And clearly they don't know all of the talent that is in Essex, and that's such a shame.
And that's why please, if you are in the least bit interested, I do kind of come to the, I'm going to see if I could actually put up here. This is the link to actually get tickets for the Essex Businesswoman's Experience. That's just a bit easy for you. Essex Businesswoman's Experience, EBWE tickets. Go and get your ticket as soon as you can. And I think there's another reason for you to be there. I mean, I don't live in Essex and I'm going to be there, right? And the reason why is because I have been to Essex on a number of occasions and I am astounded at how dynamic the women are. I mean, they are just going for it. They're just doing stuff. People are involved. They're getting together and doing things. And I think that the energy there is amazing. And Sarah, I really want to commend you for what you said about our local community, because I was just listening to the news and they were talking about how, the inflation that we're experiencing because a lot of our products that we're buying from outside, just our basic products we're buying from outside the UK, how people are kind of experiencing greater hardship now financially. So we can actually change all of that by actually spending British or spending local. So that's quite an important aspect for us to, and I love the fact that you brought that up, because I don't think anybody else that I've spoken to has actually mentioned that aspect of it. So thank you for that.
It's not so much the British aspect, it's the local communities.
Even more so, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. And so I kind of said British because I kind of,
I don't want to sound like
British and then go local.
It's just, our local communities are amazing places, and we've got so much political turmoil going on. If we can't all pull together and support each other until the national people do whatever they have to do with Europe and everyone else in the world, we can't ask them to do anything. They couldn't organise a pee up in a brewery. So we have to be independent and say, okay, while you're busy making a mess of our lives on an international stage, we'll just do things on a local level and we'll just support and grow our own communities. And of course, you can take credit for that down the line, but we know different.
Yes, exactly. One of my big messages that I like to talk about very much is very much about community and how we need to get much more involved in our communities, and then stop expecting the government to fix everything and start actually sort of doing things in your own community to make a difference. However, that is not what I wanted to talk about today, even though you can see I can spend an hour on here with Sarah without a problem. Sarah, you are going to be talking about something that is quite close to my heart, having trained as a computer programmer way back when. But I think a lot of people don't get the value of technology and how you can use it. And so I thought that you can mix it up if you want in terms of around your background and what it is that you'd actually be talking about at the event. I can ask you a bit more questions about what you'll be talking about a bit later, but definitely let's start with your background. Why you end up talking about something called Optimize Anything.
Okay. I was one of the youngest pub landladies in the UK when I first was granted my licence in 1994. And that seems like a whole lifetime ago, but it was only 23 years ago. And I managed public houses. So I was managing communities at grassroots level. And that always fascinated me, particularly as I was the person in charge of their drug of choice and how people reacted to that. And that kind of got me interested into how people work, why they think certain things, how they behave around certain situations. And I became a people watcher, for want of a better phrase. At the age of 25, I really had enough of the pub industry and the hospitality and catering. It was exhausting. It was long hours. It's not so much hard work, but constant work. And I just was thinking to myself, you know what, I've got an 18-month-old daughter. She doesn't know I'm her mum. She toddles around my pub. She sees all of these strangers in her house and she thinks this is normal. And it isn't normal. This isn't how children should grow up. So it's time for me to come out. So I came out of that, and it was in a chance conversation with one of the former people in the pub that I chose my next career. He said, oh, you should go into recruitment. And I'm like, why? Why should I go into recruitment? He said, it's the sales of the 90s. And he made such a bang up job of selling me recruitment. I went out and got an interview as a recruitment consultant. And I did that for a while, but it really weren't satisfying. I just rock up, do my job, earn a bucket load of money and walk out the door. It really just didn't stretch my brain. Yeah. And then somebody said to me, why don't you do something that helps people? And I'm like, oh, go away. I've worked in catering for God knows how long. I'm always helping people. But then I started to feel guilty. So I thought, okay, then I'll go and do recruitment in the welfare to work sector. So I managed to convince them to give me a job. And I say convince them because my writing wasn't particularly up to scratch. My communication skills were very much would you like peanuts or would you like a double, rather than anything more cohesive. I managed to talk my way into working in the welfare to work sector, and very quickly the company that I worked for, which was Reed, paid for me to go to university and paid for my higher education and promoted me to great heights. At one point I had several departments and heaps of people reporting into me at Reed. And then I took early retirement because my former husband went to work in Norway. And how that came about was really quite confusing, because we'd just gone away on holiday to Portugal, and we'd come back from our holiday in Portugal, and he'd put the case on the bed, and I undid the case, and he went, "Oh, don't unpack mine, I'm going to Norway tomorrow." And I'm like, "Oh, so when were you going to tell me?" You know, and that was the state of our marriage at that point. The day before he could go to Norway, he tells me he's going for 6 months, and I was really not bothered. So at that point, yeah, shame it couldn't be longer. Anyway, there I was with
I just realised what you said.
6 years old daughter and a husband that had just gone away to Norway with no notice whatsoever. No, oh, by the way, I won't be able to pick our daughter up from nursery for the next week. He just expected me to pull a job and pull childcare out of my butt the day before I had to go to work. So I had to ring up and resign my position. And that wasn't very good. And I was retired for 2 weeks before the company that took over from Reed rang me up and said, "Look, we know you're retired and we know you've got no childcare, but how about we double your salary? You can work from 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock. You can have a company computer and you can take it home and do anything at home if you feel like it. We'll pay your phone bill, we'll pay your internet. And by the way, we'll give you a promotion as well." And I went, "Oh, all right then, I've been at home a fortnight, I'm bored now." So I went back to work, and it was here that I really started to get deep into local communities. I worked with recovering addicts from alcohol, from drug addiction. I basically, if somebody was written off from society, they were sent to me, because there was nobody else that could deal with them, so they were sent to my department. And my department grew from being a tiny team with me and 6 other teams that reported into me but were nothing to do with my tiny little department, to me practically being the overlord of this floor with 60 people reporting into me. And it grew really rapidly. And part of the reason it was successful was I would have people come in from the community and say, "I can't do this because I'm that." And I would say, "Okay then." An example would be, I had somebody come in from the Bangladeshi community and say, "I can't do any job because I'm a Muslim." And clearly they were just taking advantage of the fact that I didn't really know much about the Muslim faith. So I just hiked myself off down to the local mosque, and there's a big one in Whitechapel. And I made an appointment to see the imam there, and I sat down and I said, "Somebody's told me that they can't get a job because they're a Muslim. What am I saying? What am I doing that says this person can't get a job?" And they're saying, "Well, that person's taking liberties with you." So then the imam would come back with me and would stand up on a milk crate. Do you remember milk crates when people used to have milk delivered? Now it's all, yeah. He stood up on a milk crate and he would say to these people in the room, he would say, "If you are telling these people you can't work because you're a Muslim, you are not a Muslim." this is a lie and you shouldn't be saying this. It's your job to work and to provide for your family and to be part of the community, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to see Sarah back again telling me you're telling her these lies. And I'm like, oh, this is really good. And it works in all the communities. Whenever they tell you the reason that they can't do something, you go and find their community leader and say, is this true? And they educate you. They say, oh, no, they can't do this, but that doesn't mean to say they can't do anything at all. They just can't do that. So there I was with this department that everybody's like, ha, let her get on with that. That's a fast track to nowhere. To suddenly going from fast track to nowhere to complete U-turn, and everybody in the country looking and using us as the example. And that was because, firstly, I wasn't frightened to say, I don't know. I don't know what you're telling me, whether it's true or not. I don't know what you're asking me, whether it's right. So I'm just going to go to the highest person that I can speak to and ask them to share with me so I can make this work for you. Because if what you're telling me is true, then we need to change the system. And if what you're telling me isn't true, then we need to change you. But I'm not going to try and change somebody before I know the answers. And that's what I did right up until I was on maternity leave. And none of that involved any writing, doing anything online. All it involved was talking to people. Facebook didn't exist. The blogging platforms that were available were things like GeoCities, which I only ever seemed to be able to manage to colour orange. And the internet back then was very different to how it is now. Completely and utterly different. I believe Skype only just existed, but nobody really had it. And it was at that point that I was on maternity leave from my fantastic job, and I'd now traded the lazy I'm going to Norway husband for husband 2.0, my beloved Kevin. And I had 2 children very close together, and I was playing with those kids, and he come in and he said, like, oh, you got to do something. And I'm like, what do you mean I've got to do something? If we don't get any leads in this business within the next 6 weeks, we're not going to have a business. And I'm like, okay. Who deals with the leads? You do. Oh, okay. And that was kind of my immersion, my like trial by fire of working in a small business, because I didn't realise that small business owners, when they're starting a business, have to do everything. And there was Kevin, he was taking the orders, delivering the orders, washing the vans, fueling the vans, servicing them partly before they went to the mechanic. And he was doing everything to get to the stage where the business was profitable so he could outsource some of the things. And I'm like, well, this isn't how they taught this at university. It doesn't happen like this. He must be doing something wrong, which I subsequently found out that no, university is wrong. Business is kind of bootstrap and fail. They have times when they kind of trade insolvently for a couple of weeks while they're getting everything together. And they do all kinds of things. And their skills are not just, Kevin had driving skills and management skills, and he'd set up a transport company. He didn't have legal skills or marketing skills. And I'm sitting here and thinking to myself, what on earth do other business owners do? And the truth of the matter is they all do the same till they get their income flowing in, where they can say, right, don't want to do the accounts anymore, that can go to an accountant. Don't want to do this anymore, the payroll can go out to somebody else. Don't want to do that anymore, we'll hire somebody in to do that. And that's how small businesses work. And of course, that isn't how small businesses work when you go to university, or even when you get government advice. It's like, oh, here's your business plan, go and get some funding, everything's all rosy and all customers just magically appear. And it's not like that. If you can remember back to when you started your business, it was certainly very different to how it's meant to be. And that's where I came into the business with Kevin, and I had no skills. All right, don't get me wrong, I can talk for England, and I think that's the thing that I've done in all of my jobs ever. But writing, no. I did fail badly at poetry at school. I'm not particularly brilliant at maths. I'm not particularly brilliant at any one thing. But what I will say is I have determination in spades. And if you have not got any tenacity or any determination, it doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to get anywhere. Because if you quit at the first hurdle, you would never do anything. And it comes back to how you learn things. As a child, as a baby, you pulled yourself up on the furniture and you saw, ooh, I'm trying my legs out. Oh, will they stand? Can I use my legs? Oh, apparently not. No. Do you quit at that point and say, nah, walking's for suckers, I'm not going to do that? Of course not. You stand back up on the furniture and within a couple of hours, you're terrorizing your parents, running around, climbing up things that you shouldn't, utilizing this newfound skill. And it seems that quite a lot of business owners start a business but completely forget how to learn. They forget how to be of a blank mind where they can have somebody come in and say, oh, have you tried this? And they'll say something like, oh, my Aunt Joan tried that back in the 1980s and it never worked and blah, blah, blah. Right? They kind of bring all of their past experiences to the present conversation. And that's not to say they don't have any value. It's just the world has changed since the 1980s. And what Auntie Joan did with her Tupperware business isn't how most people do business these days. So you kind of got to come at it with a blank slate. And I'm fortunate because my dad's an entrepreneur, and he always said, if you've got people who are willing to share advice, just remember it costs nothing to listen. And I'm like, oh, okay. And there are all people around you always sharing advice. And quite often it comes from a place of fear, as in, oh, don't do that, you'll get hurt, or don't do that, that's a lot of money, don't do that, it won't be right for you. And it comes from their fears rather than your own fear, and you kind of absorb all of their messages. And when it comes to doing something in your own business, you've got all of these fears that have been projected onto you, including Auntie Joan's failed Tupperware business from 35 years ago. And it's really hard for you to make decisions and go into a conversation and listen to what somebody has to say. And I found that myself, having run a pub and lots of people around me giving advice, and then going into recruitment and having nobody knowing what I actually did, let alone being able to advise me. I found lots of people, and they would say things and I didn't know what was the right advice, and I would just listen. And it's easy to say follow your heart, but sometimes there are people who shout very loudly and are very convincing, and it's their job to be convincing because they're selling you something, and it takes a while to work out what are they selling, why are they selling it. Does somebody have an ulterior motive for recommending that something to you? And at that point, I realized that not a lot of people listened in business. They heard, but they didn't listen. And for me, going back to the businesswoman's experience, you meet lots of people that day, but it's after that day the real magic happens. That you get to ring up these people and say, hey, I saw you on the stand, or we exchanged cards business networking. So tell me, what is it you exactly do? Who do you really help? And then really listen to them. And, when you deeply listen, that's when you hear so much more than the words being said. And the people will tell you things. They'll say, do you know what? I've started up this business as a hypnotherapy, and I thought I wanted to help people with weight loss. But what I really do best is helping people with their smoking. And you say, well, have you changed that on your website? And they say, no, because, I don't like it because I've told everybody that all I do is the weight loss. And now I think they're going to be confused if I move to the smoking. And you say to them, but this is what you really want to do. How about I introduce you to a couple of people who I've connected with on LinkedIn who I know are looking to give up smoking? Would you change your page then? Oh, I'd change it then. Oh, but there you go. And it's not about me ringing up to sell any service that I may have, but deeply listening, because that deep listening, it really benefits the other person. They feel heard, and people that truly are heard go out and do amazing things in the world. But also, I've now got people that I can refer to keep the money in the local community, to say, hey, you were looking to give up smoking. How are you getting on with the patches? And they'll say, oh, yeah, that's fantastic. Or, oh, I'm back on the vaping and da, 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 da. And then you can say, oh, have you thought about hypnotherapy? And then they say, oh, no, not really. I really couldn't do that. And I'm like, well, why? And because I'm not a hypnotherapist, they'll tell me the reasons why they don't want to do the hypnotherapy. They're frightened they're going to be made to quack like a duck or eat an onion. And then you can say, yeah, but surely if they did that to you, you'd have a nice lawsuit and a big payout on your hands, because they're not ethically allowed to do that.
Are you going to be featuring some of this in your talk? Optimize anything?
I might talk about, I will ask somebody in the room to share with me their business, and I will show them how they can literally optimize anything. Because it's really important that you're found for what you love doing, and not for your name or your website address. Because if people find you for your name or your website address, they know you already. Yeah. If somebody types in hands-on business, they know you already. Yeah. If they type in your name, they know you. Somebody has spoken about you. They've heard you speak. Now, if somebody types in, I've lost my spiritual connection, I can't connect with my source, and I'm feeling really disempowered about my business. Actually, I'm feeling really rather crappy about it. What can I do to reconnect? If your website doesn't come up for that, if you can't help them reconnect to the source and give them a business advice that helps them make the right decisions, then you're not being found for the right things. And lots of people don't get that.
I love that. And I think that's one of the things that you do that's different to other people, is this whole concept of actually, how can people who don't already find me? Because let's be honest, most of our business tends to come from people who know us already, but you need a new influx of business all the time. And that you really kind of churned around your husband's transport business, and you kind of, it became your business.
Oh gosh, too, yeah.
And you did that through blogging?
Yeah. 2 years in, we won a 7-figure contract. Remember, this is the girl that was told, can't write, won't make anything other than cleaning toilets at school in the school report. So if I can do that and not be able to write, I really can't understand people's fear. Now, when I first started blogging, there was lots of very loud people on the internet, and they would say, you've spelt utilised with an S and not a Z. That's wrong. Now they're more educated. Now that they understand that people in Australia and people in Canada in certain places don't spell words with Zs, they use Ss. And there are don't get people started on the Oxford comma. There's lots of people arguing about that, whether it's grammatically correct or not. And whilst they're busy doing that, I've churned out another 3 blog posts that have brought me in another 6 dozen clients. Now, that might not sound a lot, but if you're going to live in perpetual fear over whether something is capitalized, and particularly like the word internet, apparently that shouldn't have been capitalized until 2 years ago when it was officially in a style guide. If you're going to let a little thing like that pull you down from being out there and gaining business, then I don't know what, because you've got to stop caring about what people think. If somebody says you've got a grammar problem, I'm always very specific. I say, what's the grammar problem? And they said, well, there's a grammar problem. What's the grammar problem in that post? So you can recognise there's a problem, but you can't articulate what the problem is. That's okay. I'll send you one of those Collins writing guides. But here's the thing. Content that converts is conversational. And conversation isn't grammatically correct.
No,
in
never.
Conversations. Yeah, but you start them with and but and because. None of that's grammatically correct.
I think the one thing that you actually also highlighting, just aside from just grammar, being in business alone does result in people kind of making comments, making people kind of saying mean things, being insensitive, thinking about themselves, never thinking about you. It's very hard for a woman in particular, especially those of us who are kind of sensitive to be in business. It takes some mental kind of hijinks to get over it and to be able to separate ourselves from it and just see it as business.
Kevin says to me, he says, I always know when you're going to go and do lots of video. And I say, why is that? He says, you go and get your eyebrows done. And I'm like, do you know why that is? And he's like, I've got no idea, but I don't worry about my eyebrows. And I'm like, well, you're not a woman. And he's like, I can't see what the big deal is. Why have you got to go and get your eyebrows waxed and shaped and everything? I said, because other women will watch what video and they will say, oh, your brows are a bit out of shape. Now, I could be telling them how to mint gold bars in their own oven out of eggs and leftovers from Sunday roast, right? But they don't care. If my eyebrows are not perfect, doesn't matter what I'm telling them, it's all useless.
Yeah.
And
they get a bit stuck, and we can't, but we can change how women think. I mean, we've been encouraged from a very young age to think like that, and I think by being leaders in the industry, we can teach people actually to focus on what really, really matters. And I often sort of lead up front. I've got a friend of mine who says, "Oh, your glasses are skew," and I go, "No, actually, my whole face is skew." So there you go. So, and so just lead with whatever people are going to give you a hard time about. Oh, I love this. Judith goes, I don't give a damn about eyebrows. She just made a comment here. Yes, Judith, good for you. Very, very good point. Right? So, no, exactly. My eyebrows as well. I've got one that's kind of a bit more up than the other. And I've looked at, since I've been doing videos, I've been going, oh, I didn't realize how skew my face was. Okay, interesting. But the interesting thing is I've been watching actually all those news presenters on TV and they all have skewed faces if you really look. But most of the time I don't really look. I'm just listening to what they have to say. And I think that is what matters really. What do people have to say? And I love what Sarah has to say. I love the fact that she's an Essex girl made good. You were the one who coined that phrase before, right? But one thing that we haven't really talked about, which let me just go back to optimize anything, because I think that there are some people a little frightened by the concept of optimize. What do you mean by optimize? Can you just put it in layman's terms? What does that mean? So I've got a a little bit about my business. I do scientific hand and fingerprint analysis. It's a little bit different. I help people create businesses which which are basically expression of who they are. Because I'm all about authenticity, but not authenticity in that superficial kind of way, but like being real and making your business a real expression of who you are. So if you were going to optimize my business, would that be a beginning example to give you so that you can give us an example of what the optimize anything might be about?
Right. So you would want somebody who comes in and they are looking to be more authentic in business. So how would they know that they're not authentic in their business? So some of the things they would think about would be, when I get up for my work, I'm not feeling satisfied. I'm feeling kind of fake or plastic or not quite right. I'm not comfortable in my own skin. Yet once upon a time I was. And that's because they've shifted from being their own authentic self into being a business persona. So you would need to help them either merge their persona and their authentic self together or shift them back to where they want to be. Now, they won't come to you and say, I need shifting back to my authentic self, right? Because that would never cross their mind. So you need to talk to them very directly in their language. And you would say things like, are you finding when you do your work that you're not feeling true to yourself, that you're feeling perhaps you've compromised your business values, and your business values and your personal values are now miles apart? If that's how you're feeling, would you like to come and have a call with me and see about how we can bring them closer together? And at that point, they kind of realize that when they started their business, all the business values were their personal values. But as their business has grown, the business has a new life and new values that are related to the business. And that can come from the customers projecting those values onto the business. It can come from the staff, the outsourced team. It can come from all sorts of places. So people do feel really disconnected. And that's where your magic comes in. You can say, you know what, when you started your business, you had your personal values. Have you sat down and done the business its own set of values? And oh, no, I haven't done that. And then you can do your scientific hand analysis, and you can do all of the things that you do. You can study their hands, and then you can say, okay, this is what I get from you. This is what I get from the business. Now, what of you do you wish to give the business, and what do you want for the business to have for itself? And at that moment, they can separate the two. But prior to that, their business was them, their values was theirs, but somewhere they became skewed, and they can't quite articulate the authentic connection. Now, I may be a bit off with what you do because I don't really understand scientific hand analysis, although I have seen you in action. So, yes, down at Winning Women in Leigh-on-Sea a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And, you know, it was a
That's right.
great talk. And if you get the opportunity, if you're watching this and you want to know more about the hand analysis, you have to go and listen to Helen talk, because I think you're going to love it. And it's these people who are brought in for one set of phrases who don't quite understand why they're feeling the disconnect with their business. And they're not understanding it's because the business has grown, that they've grown. And when they first did their business values, which could be anything up to 10 years previous, that things have changed. And whilst the core values remain the same, 10 years ago, people weren't talking about being authentic in business. They were talking world domination and global this and global that. And the lexicon of words that are used changes. And that's what Optimize Anything really is about, is bringing what you use on your website and bringing in what people are talking about so you can be found for what you do. So rather than being found simply for something like business values, which may be found by somebody who's starting up, you're found by somebody who's established. And that's important that they're established, because they're going to have the money to buy your services. It's no good being the best found person on the planet and everybody that's finding you hasn't got the money to buy your services, because how will you sustain a business? You can't.
Yeah, precisely.
So,
absolutely.
be found by the people that need you. Be found very specifically around what they're looking for. So you may talk about longevity in business and the signs of business growth and the wear and tear that business growth does on an entrepreneur. And you may talk about all of the things that they may be feeling as their business grows. Quite often it's confusing because they're still here. The take has gone up here and they've got to rapidly grow new skills and bring in new people to deliver up here, but mentally they're still down here. And that happened to us in the transport business. Fortunately, Kevin could manage that. But at that point in time, I couldn't. I was like, where have all these drivers come from? Who's that? Who are these strange people walking through my house? You know, and Kevin was able to scale and adapt and grow. But for me, it was unexpected. And the change literally was overnight. One day I published a blog post saying something about you're fired and talking about a national bathroom company that we'd got a big contract with, and we fired them. And I had a photograph of my then 4-year-old daughter, hands on hips, in it. I even had a typo in the headline. And this blog post caught the eye of an international motor company who called Kevin in for a meeting and awarded him a 7-figure contract. Now, this
based
was
on your daughter, picture of your daughter.
Picture of my daughter. Everybody else is saying, oh, they're so unprofessional. They're putting their kids in their blog posts. And somebody else is, oh, nobody will ever book them because there's a typo in the headline. Well, the thing is, all of those are good reasons when you don't want to work with somebody. Yeah? When you don't want to do business with somebody, you'll find an excuse. Oh, I didn't like her eyebrows, or the colour of her hair. It's right. That's because you don't want to work with somebody. And rather just say, actually, do you know what? I like you, but I don't want to work with you. They start coming up with the most crazy excuses, and they'll tell you these crazy excuses, and you kind of got to have faith in yourself and say, do you know what? Even if I dyed my hair from red to green, you will never do business with me. And that is perfectly okay, because I only want to do people who are happy with me as me. Back to your authenticity. If you want me to change in order to do business with you, then we can't do business together. And that is sometimes a terrifying thing. Years ago, that was terrifying to me. It was like, oh, you want to give me money? You want to be a customer? Oh, we'll take your money. And like Kevin's like, no, you can't do that. And I'm like, why not? This is what businesses do. And that's what big corporate businesses do, because it's only one person. The person that takes the money is different from the person that invoices, who is different from the person that delivers the end product. And as entrepreneurs and local business owners, we don't have that luxury. We may outsource some of it, like our accounting, and we may outsource our marketing, we may outsource our lead generation and all of those things. But ultimately, we go into business because we want to serve our community in a specific way. We want to help them, and to serve them is a real deep fundamental within our core. And if we can't serve them, it doesn't matter whether we're making 10 million quid or 50 pence, we're not going to feel complete in ourselves. And that's the difference between us local business owners and big corporates. They don't care who they serve. They don't care why they serve them a lot of the time. And they go off and do all kinds of things. And quite often, you sit there and you think to yourself, how did I end up in Starbucks? Because once upon a time, they were a small conglomerate that were over here and they were cute. And now they're homogenized and they're all identical and they have everything the same. And you could land up sitting there thinking, why am I here? Why am I doing business with them? And it's become a habit. And I agree, if they don't like us for our red hair, they can just sling their hooks. I'm currently in my summer brunette mode at the moment, but normally I'm red.
Yeah, no, I've seen that actually. Judith has very similar red hair often, and I love the
Mm.
fact that she commented on that. If anybody didn't read it, it said, I like anything that's an auto filter. If they don't want to work with me because I've red hair, then great, make room for those who do.
Mm.
And, you know, this is something that actually, we were talking very much about sensitivity in business, and it's one thing that I've learned actually, I've got a real thing about, you know, who I'm meant to work with will like me, and if they don't, then please go and find somebody else who can serve you. That's really
Mm.
okay with me. I don't need to stress to work with you. So if you're working with anybody at the moment that you find is actually it feels like it's hard work, don't work with them. It reduces your energy, and you're less likely to attract the kind of clients that you actually do want to work with. So I
Mm.
think that's a really important thing. What I'd love to get to the bottom of just here, Sarah, just very clear, quickly, is with Optimize Anything, the talk that you're doing, who do you think should come and expect them to leave being able to do as a result of coming to your talk?
Okay. Optimization assumes that you have something to optimize. So you've got to have a website or some form of social media account. Yeah. You have to have a marketing channel that you communicating with people with in order to optimize it.
Yeah.
Right? If you think of it, optimization, if you think in terms of a car, most people focus on the paint job of the car and what it looks like. And they're very superficial things. What a car paint job looks like can be impacted by many things, whether it's just been polished, whether it's just been waxed, whether it's just spent 6 months sitting under a tree and all blossom have fell on it, or in my case I've got a horse chestnut tree, so it's sap. And you know, all of these can impact upon how a vehicle looks. And then if the vehicle is driving up and down the road, that paint job that was so attractive when you bought it, it looks nothing like it. Okay. Now, optimization is nothing to do with the vehicle in terms of how it looks. Optimization is very much about fine tuning the engine so that you get more miles per gallon, that your ride is smoother and safer, and that when you drive the vehicle that you feel completely safe. And that's what optimization is. And it works no matter what color the vehicle is. Now, sometimes the design of the vehicle doesn't lend to optimization. For example, cars, to be the most fuel efficient, would have to be shaped like a banana. So if you've got a banana and the curve, as they're driving into the wind would flow over the top of the banana shape. Yeah. Now, nobody's going to buy a banana shaped car because umpteen manufacturers have tried it. Nobody is going to buy it. They're not even going to buy a banana yellow car. This isn't the 1970s anymore. Now, you can't have a square car either, because if you've got a car like that and it's traveling somewhere, it just hits resistance all of the time, and it's not smooth for the wind to flow over or under or even around it. So to drive a vehicle that is square is going to be not able to be optimized, simply because it's not roadworthy. Yeah, I'll go with not roadworthy. Now, there are square vehicles out there, but they tend to serve a very specific purpose, as in they're collecting your dustbins, that they're hauling great big heaps of rubbish. So they're square because they have to contain the power and the powerful engines to haul all of this rubbish, these bins, and all of the big things that need to be moved around in our cities and in our communities. Now, most of us do not require a dumpster or a HGV vehicle just to trot about town, or even go to visit our parents or do a long distance journey. So we don't need to focus on optimizing big, heavy vehicles. We just need to focus on optimizing what we've got. And when we do that, we get so much more for them. I had a client and I said to her, when did you last update your website? And she said, oh, I bought it in 2006. I'm like, that's great. It's 2013. WordPress has had something like 100 updates since then. When did you last update it? 2006, when I bought it. And she'd not cared for her website, and that's why things weren't working, things were breaking. She didn't realize. And then when things were breaking quite heavily, she went back to the original site builder and said, my site's not working, you didn't build it right. Now, if we think in terms of cars, if you drove your Ford Escort for 6 years, 7 years, and then you go back to Fords and say to them, excuse me, I bought this car 7 years ago, but I've not put any oil in it. I've never changed the spark plugs or the air filters. I only just managed to put petrol in it. It's not working. It's all your fault. They'd just laugh at you. But people do this with their websites all the time. They don't care for them. They don't optimize them. And then when it all goes horribly wrong, as it often does, it's all the poor web designer's fault. So Optimize Anything kind of says these are your responsibilities as a responsible business owner. This is how you look after and care for your website. This is how you optimize it, but this is how you take care of it. This is how you make sure that it doesn't break down mid-journey. And then it also goes through how to optimize things like Instagram, your sales funnels, and all of the things that are connected with your website. But now, if you've got no communication online at all, then there is nothing to optimize. If you've got no website,
no reason to come to the talk.
Yeah, if you don't drive, if you have no vehicle, then
it's not worth coming.
Come along and speak to somebody else about business startup, and there's going to be lots of amazing women. Come along and listen to those, because you're going to have a fantastic day. Now, if you've got any digital assets, then come along and we'll do some optimization on some of those, and I'll pick somebody out of the room so you can see the process. And it is a very easy process. And I say to people in the Optimize Anything training, about 3 modules in, because there's, hey Nicola, there's a formula. It's about being found for what you wish to be found for, and then applying that to your digital assets, and then sharing stuff that attracts in the right people to your business. And it really is that simple. And people say to me, oh, but I spoke to an SEO person. And I'm like, well, what were they selling you? SEO? Oh, of course they are. They're selling it. They want to scare you so you buy their services. And I feel that women don't do business this way. And I feel there's been a shift ever since the bankers and all of the stupid things they've done and the recession and all of that. I think there's been a real shift in how people do business, where they actually say, do you know what? We don't want to be scared into buying your services. We don't want to be intimidated into having to do this. We want this because it's right. We want this because it's part of who we are. We want to care for our websites. We want to care for our fans and our followers. We want to make sure that they get the right information, and we're going to do it on our terms. We're not going to do it because you've told us the world's going to end if we don't do it. And I see that more and more and more, and I really have to get excited about that, because it's a better way of doing business. If the only way you can do business is to bully somebody into working with you, that's, as soon as you stop doing that, you don't have a business. And
that is a major. I'm so on the same page with you. I don't think it's the future. This is going to last longer. I think that when we do that, we treat people like they're idiots. And to be honest with you, most people are not.
No, they're not.
If you treat them like they're idiots, they won't vote for you. And as people have recently seen. So you know, agree with when we're selling something that's absolutely key. We've got quite a number of people watching.
Hello.
Those of you who are online with us, we've had Nicola and Judith say hello with one of their comments. Who else is on live wants to say hello? The one thing that Sarah, perhaps I should have asked her to share more at the beginning, is a little bit about her credibility and some of the things that she has actually achieved for a Wix Girl Made Good. You know, for somebody who doesn't rate herself as a writer, doesn't rate herself in a lot of different areas, although I personally am seeing quite a few little gifts and talents that she's kind of quietly hiding under the bushels there. But let's assume she is who she says she is. And tell us about what things that have happened to you as a result of the fact that you're
okay. I've got my about page up, so if I'm not looking at you, I apologise, because I've got my about page up, because these things that I'm going to share with you tend to happen to other people. They never sort of happen to me. And then they started happening to me. And then people would say, "You're lucky." And I'm like, really? All of the amount of work that I do and I'm lucky? Hell no. And I was watching something with my daughter the other day, something on TV called Rain, about a young Mary Queen of Scots. They wear all spangly dresses, and it's nothing like. And one of the one of the guys there, he turned around and he said, "Best of skill," and I thought, that's it. That's amazing. I am never going to wish people best of luck and good luck. I'm going to wish them good skill and best of skill from now on, because luck is a small part of it. You know, you have to have the skill to deliver on the tiny bit of luck. But everybody focuses, see you, Judith, everybody focuses on the little tiny bit of luck without realising all of the hard work that's led to that luck. So the first big thing that happened to me was Forbes listed one of my websites, and it was a top website for women, and they didn't do that once, they done it 3 consecutive times, and that led to Martha Stewart inviting me to a party, and I sent along a close friend. And I didn't read the invitation to the party quickly, because my friend is an influential cancer and oncologist, very, very highly respected. And Martha Stewart's party was to launch her clothing line for lap dogs and handbag dogs. And I'd sent this world-class oncologist to see clothing lines for chihuahuas via Martha Stewart. Yeah. So that's what Forbes did with me. It peed off one of my really good people. I've been featured on sites like the Huffington Post. Brand Republic has listed me as number 14 as one of the top 50 UK influencers in marketing. The Guardian.
Brand Republic, did you say?
Yep, Brand Republic. The Guardian for marketing and PR excellence. There's a magazine called The Drum, and they did little top trump cards for people influential in marketing, and they sent me a little top trump card telling me my skill sets, and apparently I'm only fiery 14, and everybody who I showed that to, and they looked at that and went, "Fiery 14." Yeah, so I'm clearly.
Did you get invited to blog or something for the Olympics?
That came around. It weren't quite invited to blog for them. I had to produce a blog post whilst in Vancouver, watching the Winter Olympics, which I duly did. That was a £15,000 trip just to write one blog post. I've not got them to hand, but the glasses that I usually wear were paid for by a company called iZen, and that's £800 worth of glasses that are digital glasses. They're like varifocal, so when I look at the laptop and then I look down here, they adjust. And they were gifted to me if I wrote about their glasses, and they come at a really opportune moment. I believe the woo-woo people would say I'd manifested them because I needed them. I don't have it to hand. I'm looking around my office, but I don't have it to hand. But I've actually got a digital handbag that I've been asked to write about, a £300 worth of handbag, absolutely gorgeous. Prior to getting the handbag, I was very much digital handbag, what's that all about? Yeah, right. And when it arrived, I was like, oh, so not impressed. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful handbag. And then I went out with it for the day, and now I take it everywhere. And I am not a handbag person. Yes, and I've got to write about that. It's called an electronista, and it's a digital handbag and organizer by Nomo for women in business. And prior to having one, and even up until delivery, I wasn't convinced. And now I've got one, I go everywhere with it. Fantastic. So you get lots of perks for blogging, but it's not just those kind of things. Tony Robbins invited me for drinks in London, and at the time I was like, who's Tony Robbins? And all of my friends go, oh my god, Tony Robbins. I'm like, yeah? Who's Tony Robbins? Yeah, credentials coming out of my ears.
I'm sorry, I'm covering your face with this comment, but I thought it was worth putting up there. So Sarah has credentials coming out of her ears, but more importantly, she walks the talk and works her backside off and deserves every bit of her success. She's also a thoroughly nice person and a great role model. I love that, Nicola. You're such a fabulous human being yourself. I love people who are willing to kind of really give credit where it's due. So, Sarah, we're coming to the end of our chat now. We've been on so much longer than I expected.
Yeah,
We've been
sorry.
on for an hour.
Sorry about that. Okay. You start talking about the things you love and the conversation just flows.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I mean, not everybody actually can talk with such passion and excitement. And, everything you had to share was wonderful. I hope that everybody, those of you who have websites, and certainly, what time is your talk on, Sarah?
I asked to go in the afternoon. I've no idea what time. I just say, put me on after lunch, because I know lots of speakers don't like going on after lunch because they think everybody's asleep. But I think if you're talking about something that's really interesting, it doesn't matter when you go on.
Yeah, so I'm on at 11:30, and I think you are on. I'm going to go and actually just find. I tell you, I'm going to give you the website address again for those of you who are want to know what's going on. Here's the website address. I'll just take our names out of the thing so we don't cover Sarah's face. There's the website address. That will tell you there's an option there. Oh, hi, Sue. You can get your. Let me just give you the link to get your tickets. So that particular website, you can find out exactly when Sarah is on. Her talk is called Optimize Anything, and as you can tell, that actually Sarah can pretty much. So it doesn't really actually matter in some ways. Whereas you could probably optimize your person. Because one thing somebody said to me about her, which we haven't mentioned, which I have to mention, is she said to me, Sarah is masterful at minimizing effort. And I think that's ultimately what Sarah's talk is about, is actually how can you minimize the amount of effort, get the best possible results that you can with your digital footprint, whatever that is. So that you can get better results with minimal effort.
Yeah,
Would that be fair?
Fully about doing the work once. I mean, what's the point in having to do it over and 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 not get the right results? So do the work once, optimize it. If it works, fantastic. Keep optimizing it, keep using it. If it doesn't work, tweak it and adapt it until it does. And for a lot of people, that scares them. They want it to work right off the bat. And so few things work right off the bat. Not even the first motorcycle worked when it was first. I can't remember his name. Otto something, I think, the German guy, and he constructed the two-stroke engine. Did it work first off the bat? Heck no. He had to do it X amount of times before it worked. And the same with cars. The very first Model T, the mass-produced car, was very square and boxy. That must have been murder on the fuel. They must be doing like half a mile to the gallon. And, now we can get so much more from our vehicles because they've been tested and tweaked and adapted and optimized continually. So now we don't have the banana-shaped aerodynamic cars. We actually have ones that we can look good in and are fuel efficient and don't break down.
Did you see that India's going they're getting rid of all of their petrol cars and all, they want the whole, I think within by 2030 or something, that the whole country's got electric cars. I was like, fabulous. Wow, that's amazing. Just talk about helping the planet when Trump is kind of like not bothering. I think that's amazing. Well done to the Indians.
Yeah.
Sarah, thank you so much. And I can't wait to see you on Friday. I hope I get a chance, if I can, to come to your talk, because I know that I will get enormous value from it.
Thank you.
And don't forget, people, you can and you can also join a networking. There's there's an extra sort of networking, which is, Sarah was very much talking about, it's afterwards, it's the follow-up that we do. This is where the magic happens after you come to these events. So try to come at 8 o'clock in the morning if you can. Join in the networking, which is being run by one of Sarah's friends, Jackie Groundsell of 1220. And she's apparently masterful at helping you with your networking, and the networking is fun. Yeah. There's, it costs a little bit extra if you do the breakfast session because it includes breakfast, but you know what? It's 10 quid. It's really no big deal, right? The tickets to come to the Essex Businesswoman's Experience are £10 for a single ticket, or if you bring a friend, the two of you can come for £15. Loads of fun stuff going on, great food, amazing women, people who will inspire you with whatever level of business you're in at the moment. And perhaps, you can come back and you can tell Sarah on her blog. She's got an amazing blog. You've still got Birds on the blog, right?
I've still got Birds on the blog, and
very famous blog. What else have you got?
I've got.
Tell Sarah about
it. I did have 52, but over the last year I've divested myself of 12. And people say to me, "I love your blog," and I say, "Which one?" And then they go blank, and I'm like, "Okay. Are you talking about Birds on the blog?" Yes. Oh, fantastic. Yes, I know that one.
Yes. That's such a great title, Birds on the blog. I can't remember. You had something else on the blog as well. It wasn't just birds, and something else that I thought was really kind of interesting. But anyway, connect with Sarah. If you can't make the event, she's on Facebook, and also she runs a really fantastic challenge called the 30-day blogging challenge. Is that the correct title? 30-day blogging challenge, I think. Which is fabulous.
It's a paid challenge now. It's £1.
It's a paid £1. £1?
£1.
Great idea. It's great. So join Sarah on that, because I've done that, and I think it's a fantastic way of kind of like getting you into the habit of blogging, and also increasing your traffic by getting things on your website much busier. So join her for that, and definitely if you can't, do come and see her. Sarah, do you want to share your website where people could actually connect with you if for some reason they can't actually make the Essex Businesswoman's Experience?
I'll type it in the chat, but I'm not sure if that comes through.
If you put it in the chat under Facebook, it should show up. It just takes a minute or two to show up, and then I can show the comment.
Right. Okay. Hang on. I need to get Facebook up. So I apologise if it starts.
No, the chat. No. Hang on a second. I found the chat. I forgot about this chat. Yes, of course, I've got it. There we go. I'll post it here. Don't worry about it. I forgot about that little chat section here. I was thinking about the other one. And just give me a second, people, and as soon as it's up, I will show it. There. Okay. How about just? There we go. Well, how would you pronounce that? Sark E-Media?
Yeah, it's Sark, which is an amalgamation of Sarah and Kevin, E for electronic, and media. But for some reason, people look at that and they think it's something that it's not. And
Like
my dad's like,
Darcy.
oh, my daughter's got a company called Sarcastic Media. And I'm like, oh, shut up.
Well, it would be kind of fun. Why not? Starting media is excellent. But anyway, thank you everybody for who stayed with us and listened. For those of you who've taken the time to write comments, you know, I love comments. We all love our little bit of feedback. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you will be with us at the Essex Businesswoman's Experience on Friday, the 16th of June, 2017. And if you are watching the replay and you've missed it, never mind. Come and meet up with Sarah on Facebook or sarkimedia.com, and you can contact me at handsonbusiness.com. That's hands-on-business.com. And otherwise, connect with me on my Facebook page, which is hands-on-business. See you again. Bye.